What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Movie Emporium's TV review of the Apple TV Plus original series, Murderbot Season 1. This will follow Episode 8, which is called Foreign Objects, and it's directed by Aurora Guerrero. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I may hate the structure of what this series is doing, but I can't deny that this wasn't a fun-ass episode. It was entertaining, it was goofy, it was dark, it was violent. It is putting more and more Murderbot into the more humanistic space. It gives Alexander Skarsgård some really funny things in this episode, and is once again part one of this 3-episode arc that could literally be one episode, as I've said many times already. But taking it on its own, it's a really good episode. It really pushes forward a lot of interesting ideas. It pushes forward a lot of structural development that needs to happen in this season. And I'm assuming if it's anything like the book, we're getting close to the end of the first book and what this segment is trying to do. And we're introduced to a new maybe villain, which is called the Gray Sis. And yeah, it's a really fun, it's probably one of the better episodes of the season, which I think I said last week's was really good. This is just as good. It really is. You can tell that this season is going to finish off strong, as long as I think it's going to finish the way it's going to finish. But I think what this episode does is it allows the humor, it allows the violence and the sci-fi elements to kind of cohesively work together, plus adds in some really fun elements with, of course, the Sanctuary Moon stuff. It allows the the throuple stuff to kind of do its thing, and it allows Murderbot to continue its journey to becoming more like a Pinocchio. And yeah, I really appreciate what this episode does. You know, Grathian has been, of course, he was very much injured in the leg. They have to figure out, because he's getting very sick, and they have to figure out how to get him back to the med bay. The Gray Sis are there. They are, of course, wanting to talk to this group of individuals because they are looking at I think it's played out like they're looking for the Murderbot Sec unit. Of course, Lebebe was part of this crew. We don't know exactly who that individual is that they're talking to on the monitor, but they know they want to talk, and they feel like there's some, work around the things because they don't want to kill each other, which makes the idea of like this could be, like a competing mining crew and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's not entirely sure. I'm sure we'll learn more in the next couple episodes as we conclude the season. The thing about what this episode does is proves how comedic Chris Weitz and Paul Weitz can be as directors. I mean, as writers, we see it throughout the history of their writing ability and stuff like that. Because the starting episode with Murderbot watching this whole segment of Sanctuary Moon and what their sec unit, played by DeWanda Wise, can do is very disturbing, but also very on point to how Murderbot feels in this situation. And of course, the character that Clark Gregg plays is very much he doesn't know better. He thinks he feels like a much less non-idiotic version, but still idiot version of like a Zap Brannigan type of character and stuff like that. So when he's like, oh yeah, like the military unit or the sec unit, the DeWanda Wise character will not attack me, but then the unit kills off the John Cho character by ripping his head off, and then eventually attacks, as Jack McBrayer's character is like the character that David Dastmalchian plays with Grathian. And you watch this sec unit just destroy everyone, murder everyone. Just you watch Clark Gregg's character like fall to the ground as his head's being pressed and blood's coming out of his eyes. And it's really funny because it very much is like in step with kind of how Murderbot is viewing the world and what that entails. But to watch Murderbot's like journey in this first kind of book / first season is really telling about what its character wants to do, what its motivations want to do, because the way it acts, the way it looks, the way it feels is more humanistic than the beginning of the season. And when they have to figure out how to work on Garathan's leg to get to whatever's in his leg that's causing his, unfortunate like sickness, they decide to have Murderbot and like basically shut off his systems because Garathan doesn't want any medicines because he's worried about the effects. So there is a way that Murderbot, who learned all this from a medical TV show, quote unquote, that apparently got stuff from real world, to basically remove, like, to take the pain away. And so he blinds Grafton so he doesn't have to see it. He doesn't need, like, removes like the nerves in his spines, like the computer. It really creates this really interesting kind of dynamic where Murderbot starts seeing into Grafton's mind, and we start seeing that Grafton's really in love with Mensa, that as we've seen throughout the entire season, there is a love relationship that he Grafton really respects. But then it gets turned on to Murderbot, and of course we see Grafton start seeing Murderbot's like world and how he murdered like 57 people, and this is when the crew learns that he's Murderbot. It's really interesting stuff because Grafton's like, you know, he can't see anything. Murderbot actually says, "I love you," and stuff like that, and then it's like instilled upon, maybe he's learning stuff from Grafton. But then Grafton wakes up, and of course he's like, "You call yourself Murderbot," and it freaks everyone out. I love this kind of stuff. Yes, this episode is short, but the moving parts and the moving pieces are just so well implemented, so well done, so fun to watch that you're just kind of going along with the ride, and it feels like a good first part to, you know, what is Gray Sis, what is their kind of goal. You know, is this crew gonna like leave the planet, or are they gonna go meet Gray Sis? As we see, they now learn that Murderbot calls himself Murderbot, and that freaks them out, and they don't know how to justify that. And Murderbot goes and, you know, does what it wants and goes off and watches more Sanctuary Moon episodes. But I love, there's a moment when the main Gray Sis person is on the camera and talking to the crew, this mining crew, and there's something that the main person says, and Murderbot snickers, and it's really funny because Murderbot is supposed to be a robot, an android, whatever you want to call it, and it has the humanistic approaches of being like snickering. It has that ability, and it has the ability to be like aware of like its motivations, and it knows it's a robot, it knows what it is, but it still feels human. And that is the amazing part of what Alexander Skarsgård as an actor can do, what he can cooperate and like put up on the screen. And so therefore watching the human qualities of this robot feel more and more human, feel more and more relatable is really fascinating and really cool. And I'm really interested to see at the end of the season, like where it kind of levies out and kind of evens out on what Murderbot is and who he is and stuff like that. But, you know, Murderbot runs out, thinks to himself, and he comes to the conclusion that, hey, he doesn't need to be the one that dies. The other crew can die. He can go off and do his own thing, or do its own thing, because it's now sentient and it's now human, or human as much as human can be for a robot. And he comes up with this plan, and he's going to implement the plan on what they can do next, because they're thinking about whether flying off to another planet, whether they should meet Gray Sis. Mensa says, we'll meet Gray Sis, I'll meet Gray Sis, and you guys fly off as a diversion. I'm really intrigued what's going to happen, because I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I honestly don't know the answer to that question, because Gray Sis could be, La Bebe could be a bad thing, or maybe they want to work together. Maybe there's another corporate structure, which we'll learn about later on in the other books or something like that. But yeah, it's a really fun moment. But the best part of the episode is the way that Roddy is kind of made fun of in this series or this episode, because he's saying things and he's making everybody uncomfortable, especially how the throuple of Rati and Pinley and Arata has gone kind of wayside. Like, Roddy has just become the full-blown comedic aspect of this episode, of this season, and just the nature of like how things are rolling and how they're being used. And it leads to Arata and Pinley in the room talking, and Roddy interrupts them and says that this isn't working, and Arata thinks that Roddy's really into her, but he's really into Pinley. He expresses her love. It's really, really funny. It's really humorous. It's really just over the top and silly, and what this series is capable of being on its strengths. And I love just like I love how Arata just kind of like, wait, you pick her? And Pinley's like, what, is that fine? Wait, he can't like somebody like me? And she's like, no. You know, there's like, it's that level of like, when we make a mistake and we're like, we're trying to say something that we're not meaning to say, and it plays out differently. It's really funny. And like I said, Roddy has some really humorous stuff. I think he, like any of these characters could have better development, but if they're going to play them as stereotypes, I think Roddy works pretty well, the character who plays him or the actor who plays him. And I think the dynamic, kind of the shallow dynamic of the lesbian love group and stuff like that. But when Roddy expresses love for Sabrina Wu's Pin Lee character, it's pretty funny, to be fairly honest. I laughed. I really did. But that's kind of where the episode ends. It ends with, of course, Murderbot coming back and saying that he has a plan, even though it may not, because they're now thinking, oh, well, Murderbot killed 57 people. But Murderbot goes, I don't know if that may be programming and stuff like that. And they're just, every step that the Murderbot goes as it becomes more human in its humanity of being a robot, the more and more it becomes chaotically interesting for the crew and how they react to it. You know, whether it be killing Le Bebe, whether it be acting out stuff that he saw from Sanctuary Moon, the way it's acting and stuff like that. It really is funny. It's funny to watch Roddy like try to defend Murderbot. Murderbot's just like, go away, leave me alone. Leave him alone. It's pretty funny. So, but as far as the episode goes, it's a pretty good one. It really is. On its strengths of just being an episode itself, it really is a fun episode. And once again, it could be 3 episodes into one, but that's not what they're doing here. So I have to take it for what it is. I gotta stop complaining about that because it's just not. I can't control. I just gotta watch it and take it for what it is. So for this episode, it's really a lot of fun. It's enjoyable. It has a lot of great moments. And for my score, I'll give it a 9.5 out of 10. I think it's a really fun episode. I really do. So it's definitely one of the better episodes of the season, or the best episode so far. So we'll see how it plays out. Hopefully it lands on its feet. Hopefully it lands in a great place, and that we'll get another season when season 2 hopefully comes around. So there we go. Anyways, with that said, that'll be my take on Murderbot season 1 episode 8, which is called Foreign Objects. I do appreciate you watching. Comments below, what do you think of this episode? What do you think about the overall arching nature of like what this episode is doing, where it's headed? If you know, I know you know. I mean, a lot of people have read it, but do you think it was a pretty good episode overall? Let me know why. Otherwise, if you like what you see on this channel, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell, top to find what's coming next. If you like this video, awesome. Hit that like button. And as always, we'll see you guys on the next episode. Peace out, guys.